I'd like to call our intern forward to lead us in the pledge.
Present. On.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. On. Prepare to post colors. Post. National colors.
Let's have a hand for the General Raymond J. Davis Young Marines and the Sons of the American Revolution. Gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. And the pledge tonight was led by the Fulton County Talented and Gifted High School student interns, Christina Wagner, Valentina Caffey, and who was missing tonight? Okay. Thank you for coming tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second by Councilmember Orleans? Does anyone in the audience have any questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. First item on the agenda is a proclamation for the National Red Ribbon Week. And let me read that proclamation. Whereas communities across America have been plagued with numerous problems associated with illicit drug use, and whereas there is a hope in winning the war on drugs, and that hope lies in education and drug demand reduction, coupled with the hard work and determination of organizations such as the Young Marine of the Young Marine Corps League to foster a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And whereas governments and community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in their effort to reduce the illicit use of drugs in our communities. And whereas the red ribbon has been chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Kiki Camarena, a drug enforcement administration agent who was murdered in the line of duty and represents the belief that one person can make a difference. And whereas the Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention and reduction efforts. And whereas on October 23rd through 31st has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, which encourages Americans to wear a red ribbon or a red bow tie to show their support for a drug-free environment. Now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through 31st as National Red Ribbon Week and urge all of our citizens to join me in this special observance. Do the Young Marines have anything to add? Gentlemen, if you'll come forward and introduce yourselves. I do this to the Boy Scouts, I might as well do it to the Young Marines. Come forward. Just tell us where you're from and where your organization meets.
Well, my name is Young Marine Sergeant Major Nathan Baker. I'm the 1st Battalion of Georgia Sergeant Major and the Senior Young Marine in the state of Georgia. And
I'm Private First Class Joshua Cabot.
I'm Corporal Avery Rabbit. I'm Corporal Matthew Ray.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's have a hand for the Young Marines. Gentlemen, you may have a seat. Next, I have a proclamation to read recognizing Veterans Day for 2013. Whereas in 1921, the unknown soldier was buried on a Virginia hillside in the Arlington National Cemetery, overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington, D.C. The site of the burial in Arlington Cemetery symbolizes the dignity and reverence of America's veterans. And whereas these memorial gardens took place in England and France, gestures took place in England and France on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebration ending the World War I at 11 a.m. on November 11th, 1918. And whereas on May 13th, 1938, Congress declared the 11th day of November each year will be a legal holiday, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and a day of celebration to honor America's veterans for their patriotism, the love of our country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. And whereas Veterans Day is a day to thank all of our veterans for their service to our country and to acknowledge their contributions to our national security, we would like to honor those who have served and sacrificed for our country on November 11th and every day. And whereas the City of Roswell is proud to acknowledge our veterans who are employed by the city, now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2013 as Veterans Day in the City of Roswell and urge all of our citizens to recognize the sacrifices and dedication of our veterans today and throughout the year. And do we have any veterans in the room? If you would, stand up, please. Let's have a hand for all these veterans. Let's stand up for them. Come on. Thank you. Thank you, veterans. We are proud of Roswell's veterans. And another distinguished group of people that we'd like to recognize tonight is our admin department. And so I have this is Admin Week in the City of Roswell. It began by lunch in the pavilion. And they are known affectionately as the Fun and Culture Group. And so I'd like to recognize, whereas the week of October 28th, 2013 through November 1st, 2013 will be recognized as Admin and Finance Appreciation Week. And whereas the mission statement for the Administration Department is providing results-oriented communication, service, and innovation to our customers. And whereas the Administration Department currently operates with 61 employees. And whereas the administration of the Finance Department is to provide financial stewardship by effectively managing the fiscal activities of our city. And whereas the Finance Department currently operates with 25 employees. Now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim October 28, 2013 through November 1st, 2013 as Admin and Finance Appreciation Week in the City of Roswell. I'd like to call upon all of our citizens to recognize the talents and dedication of our admin finance employees in these departments who strive for excellence to provide their customer service to our citizens. And I'd like to call upon Rich Dipley to say even more wonderful things about our admin finance department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's a great group of almost 100 employees, and they work extremely hard. And we talked a little bit about today that they primarily work behind the scenes, so you don't get to see them all that often. And in light of that, I'd like Michael Fisher and Keith Lee to come forward just to say a few words and recognize your departments individually. But these folks make it happen. And as anybody in business knows, it takes a village to run a business, and the administration and finance departments are kind of the quiet ones who are getting all that work done, and they're the glue that makes it all happen. So, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Councilmember Dipolito, and Mayor and Council. I do appreciate it. We have a lot of work that goes on in the city, and not all of it tends to be out front where a lot of really neat-looking projects and things like that happen. But we do have legal issues that we deal with and community relation issues that we deal with, and people that take care of our facilities and building operations, several different departments within the administration, or divisions within the administration department, that a lot of work goes on that you may not necessarily see the work going on, but you can certainly reap the benefits of the things that they do. So I think it's a pretty good group that does a lot of work and gets a lot of things accomplished, and certainly appreciate those very much. I know there's a couple of folks from admin that are here. Stand up, Chris, I know is back there. Dan, y'all stand up. Oh, and Marley back in the window, or Betsy is back there in the back with Tim. So we do have a few folks, and Karen's back here in the back. So we have a few folks that are scattered around, but it is a good group that gets a lot of various tasks done, and we do appreciate them very much.
We appreciate them cutting us a paycheck once a month. So let's have a hand for the admin department, the finance department.
Well, thank you, Councilmember DiPolito. I'd like to say thank you for recognizing us as the quiet group. Do strive to be that if we can. And certainly the employees do a lot of work for the city in the finance department, just like in the administration department. A lot of it does go unrecognized. It's day-to-day work. It's a lot of paying bills, and it's a lot of putting stuff on the GL and writing reports and getting information out and getting things purchased. And those things may not win the awards or bring home the cutting of the ribbons, but they are certainly things people take pride in. And for you guys to recognize that, we really do appreciate that. So thank you.
I would
We do
beg
have
to
a
differ
couple-
with you. One thing that the admin finance department has helped us achieve is a AAA bond rating, and it's probably the most valuable recognition the city has received in my administration.
It is a great recognition, and certainly achieved by only one other city in the state. So it is a great recognition. We do have two employees from the finance department here. I'd like to recognize them, Nancy Klingman and Winfrey Sullivan, who
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Now, this is just a day I'm going to recognize next. This is America Recycles Day in Roswell. Whereas the recycling market infrastructure in Georgia makes it one of the most prominent recycling states in the nation. Viable markets exist in the state for paper, aluminum, and steel, plastics, glass, tires, organics, and electronics. And whereas recycling creates jobs and has a positive economic impact on communities throughout Georgia. And whereas Georgia is the second largest pulp and paper producing state in the nation, accounting for over $10 billion of annual product sales and $1 billion annual payroll. These 15 mills in the state use recycled content for their production, with 9 of them relying exclusively on recycled materials for their production. And whereas recycling saves energy, conserves water and other non-renewable resources, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions, resulting in better air quality. And whereas in 2005, a 2005 waste disposal characterization study funded through the Solid Trust Fund reported that Georgians annually discard over 2.6 million tons of commonly recyclable materials, including 1 million tons of recyclable paper, producing millions of dollars worth of raw material value to Georgia manufacturers. And whereas sustainable recycling programs provide the raw materials that businesses need to grow and thrive and to promote public sector investment in public programs. And whereas the City of Roswell is pleased to announce that the Roswell Recycling Center will hold a Recycling Mythbusters contest at the Recycling Center, partner with the Atlanta Tool Bank November 9th through November 16th on a tool collection event, hold a Shred Fest on November 9th, as well as add polystyrene recycling for Roswell residents. And whereas the Roswell Recycling Center was recently awarded the Georgia Recycling Coalition Spirit of Green Award for government recycling programs, and whereas the City of Roswell and Keep Roswell Beautiful encourage all citizens to complete a pledge form promising to recycle more at the Roswell Recycling Center and curbside at their homes. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim November 15th, 2013 as America Recycles Day in Roswell, and encourage all of our citizens to participate in recycling efforts on that day and every day throughout the year. And to add to that, I'd like to call the Green Councilman, Councilman Orleans. Councilman Eichelhart. I don't know what I was saying. He's trying to move up. Councilman Eichelhart. He's trying to move up. Well, thank you, because they're all green, but tonight the green is Councilman Eichelhart.
I did want to point out the last thing, or one of the things that says adding polystyrene recycling to Roswell residents. And I don't know if Janet or somebody can, or you may be able to see it on the table over here. But this is an example of what that is. Unfortunately, it's not all styrofoam, but it's the kind of packing materials you can get on computers, appliances, things like that. So you can now bring that to the recycling center, and thank you, Vanna.
Thank you. So let's, Janet Liebert, anything else you wish to add to that? Stu is adding to that. Stu, come to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, we are blessed to have citizens in the city of Roswell who are very environmentally conscious, and they do a great job of recycling. But as in the proclamation that you read, we all still have a ways to go. And so statewide, there's a lot of material that could be recycled that is not, and so we just want to take this occasion to educate people, remind them of the opportunities that exist both curbside and at the recycling center for them to recycle a broad variety of materials. And we appreciate your support, and the community benefits in many, many ways.
And thank you for helping us recycle. One more, yes, I have a citizen who wishes to comment. Come forward, please.
Good evening. My name is Janet Russell. I want to thank you for acknowledging one of the great things Roswell does, which is recycling. It's one of the first things I tell people when they move to Roswell is we have mandatory recycling at the curb, and they love it. I also want the people that are here, especially the young people, to know that the city of Roswell did not start and come up with the idea of the recycling center. 2 women did, and I was one of them. Kathy Schechter, who used to live on Chafin Road, was the other woman. When I moved here in 1973, the word recycling had not entered the vocabulary in the South. Everything went to the landfill. 2 women, never underestimate the power of 2 women with an idea and tenacity. They started it. We let you take it over, and you've done a great job. But I think it's important for young people to know that they can have and make a difference if they decide to dig in and stick with an idea or a dream that they have. I am always thrilled. I probably have 1 can of garbage a month, not even. I think Roswell to be commended about it. It's one of the good things going on in this city that they have taken over. Janet does a good job. But I do think it's important to recognize that it was started by private citizens, and they happen to be 2 women. Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts of recycling and for helping the recycling center get started. Next on my agenda is the nomination of the Historic Preservation Commission of Tom Lynch. Do we have a motion to approve that appointment? Second. Motion by Councilmember Price, second by Councilmember Orleans. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll call upon liaison to the Admin Finance Department, Councilmember Rich DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's only right for the Fund Department to kick off the night with the new business. This is approval of a resolution to adopt the City of Roswell Defined Contribution Pension Plan and approval of Budget Amendment 602-15402-10-28-13, authorizing the distribution of a pension plan transition funds in the amount of $468,000 from the Group Health Fund to the affected funds. This will be presented by Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Councilmember DiPolito. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this item seeks your approval to establish our defined contribution pension plan for individuals hired on or after March 1st, 2011. As you know, we have a defined benefit pension plan that was frozen to new entrants effective with that date. This plan will be the complementary plan, I guess, if you will, for those individuals hired on or after that date. The budget amendment, as you recall, in fiscal year 2012, we set aside funds to allow for the catch-up provisions or the back payment of monies owed into the pension fund once it was established. And so that budget amendment seeks to transfer the funds from the group benefits fund to the individual funds through which employees are employed who will fall into the defined contribution pension plan. So those are the 2 items. The resolution and the budget amendment are the 2 items we're seeking your approval on this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this item.
Councilmember Price.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see that there's $322,772 left once this money is taken out, which I assume once it's taken out, it'll retire any needs that we have based on the transition. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I follow the question, ma'am. I'm sorry. In the 300,000
There's a
left in-
remaining balance in that fund of 322,000. So do we need to take any more of that out? So-
The transition costs that were budgeted in fiscal year 2012 were rolled forward to fiscal year 2013 and 14. The additional funds in this current fiscal year, we budgeted the remaining amount that would cover the ongoing contributions to the pension plan. As we discussed previously, this is kind of a moving target. At the time that we met in committee, we had hired already 108 individuals into the new plan, with 92 of those remaining in our employ. The very next morning, we had 2 new police officers join us. So that number is a bit of a moving target for us. The back payment and the catch-up provision we think is well accounted for with the transition costs that we budgeted. It's the amount going forward from December 1st when we go live through the remainder of this fiscal year, which is a bit of a moving target. And I may have to defer to Mr. Lee in finance regarding the budget amount. I'm not sure. We feel comfortable, as we discussed in committee, if all individuals participate at the highest level of participation, we anticipated that we might come in, if I remember correctly, $11,000 over budget. But again, there are individuals who leave our employ before vesting. There are new individuals being hired into the plan, so it is a bit of a moving target, and it's an estimation at best at this point.
Okay, so what is the estimated figure, since we've only got, well, is this calendar year or fiscal year?
The contributions that are budgeted for are covering the fiscal year. The back payment is included in the transition costs that are being distributed through this budget amendment. There's an additional amount that's budgeted in the current fiscal year budget in the individual funds that the employees are employed through that would meet the obligations for December 1st going forward.
Okay, so you don't anticipate anything left from that 322,000?
I apologize. I'm not sure where the 322,000 is coming from.
Councilmember Price, we don't anticipate anything being left over from the transition cost. We expect the entire $468,000 to be used once we know at what percentage employees are going to participate for their voluntary contribution. We will have a better idea. Moving forward, the cost of the plan will be the percentage of payroll. So the 10% of the plan, that's the employer's share, plus 5%, that's the matching amount. So whatever the amount of covered payroll for that annual or fiscal year will be budgeted. So we don't know what that is yet until we get into the budget process.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Any questions or comments from the floor? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands.
Nobody made a motion.
Oh, we don't have a, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito for approval. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
This time we'll call upon liaison to the Community Development Department, Councilmember Nancy Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is approval of a text amendment to Chapter 3 Alcoholic Beverages, Section 3.1.2 and 3.2.5 of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances, and Article 6, Chapter 6.4, C3 Highway Commercial District of the City of Roswell zoning ordinance to allow for microbreweries. This would be the first reading, and Mr. Townsend is here to talk about it.
This would add the use of a microbrewery to the C3 designation within the current zoning ordinance, as well as add appropriate definitions in the alcoholic beverage section of the city code. Staff would recommend approval of this action. If you have any further questions,
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember Price.
read the ordinance.
Now, I understand that we have not had any provision for a manufacturer of any kind prior to this. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Right, because there was some reference in the Planning Commission minutes that there was an establishment in Roswell that was producing its own beer. Is that just somehow slipped through the cracks, or was that not documented, or?
I don't know of that, sir. I didn't know that reference.
Does anybody know about that?
They are actually a restaurant. They have a consumption on the premises license. This is to allow for just a microbrewery that's not going to be serving individuals at the establishment.
I understand that, but the difference between a microbrewery and manufacturing, apparently there's a distinction in the Georgia law that apparently we didn't have an ordinance, or did we not need to have one, but we're just sticking it in there, or?
We did not have to my understanding, we did not have a provision to allow for the brewing and distribution off-site of beer. So this is a new category.
So the manufacturer in a restaurant, they could do it no matter what, under their pouring license?
By state law, there's a different category. If you brew it and sell it on site, you're under one category. If you brew and distribute, you cannot sell it on site. That's a different category. This is state law distinguishes the two. Other questions? Councilmember Wynn.
Mr. Townsend, one of the things that the Planning Commission brought up is the definition, and it has distilled spirits. So would this allow for any type of distillery then? I know that's a question that Planning Commission asked, and I didn't.
I'll let David answer.
Mr.
Okay,
Davidson.
thank you.
The definition that we have is the definition of manufacturer, and then a subset of that will be the microbrewery, and that is only for malt beverages. Malt beverages are beer, basically.
Beer, ale, and lager and all
Right,
that.
but it is not distilled spirits.
So we are making sure that when we're doing this is only for malt beverages.
Right, the only thing we're allowing in the C3 zoning is the microbrewery, which by definition is malt beverages only.
Okay, and what, when we were talking about Aqua Blue being able to do that, manufacture the beer, but they're selling it per drink.
Per drink
They're
at the
not-
establishment.
Right, they're not selling kegs or bottles or
Correct.
anything like that for distribution to other.
They are not a retail establishment.
Again, okay, that's what I want to get the clarification of. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to
Read the
approve.
Oh,
first-
we need to read the ordinance.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 3 Alcoholic Beverages of the Code of Ordinances and Article 6, Chapter 6.4, C3 Highway Commercial District of the Roswell zoning ordinance. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following amendments, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
Do we have a motion to approve the first reading?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Diamond. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? Councilmember Price.
Did we sort out the numbering? Because it looked like it was going to be very complicated if we just moved all the other numbers down. Or were we going to try to expand one of the ones that's already there?
This simply calls for them to renumber the Code of Ordinances. We're putting this as a type of license allowed, so we'll go under that section, and then all the other sections will just move down. And Muni Code does that for us. We don't have to do it. And there's a
Okay.
provision in this ordinance to renumber the code.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is approval of an amendment to Chapter 10.3 Occupation Taxes, Article 10.3.4A1 of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances. This would be second reading, and Alice Wakefield is here.
Yes, this is an amendment to the provision of the Code of Ordinances that establishes the cost for the business license, and this will clarify that cost that a business will pay $95 as an initial fee and $5 for each employee. The way that it's structured now, it gets often confusing with $5 too much or $5 not enough. This is the second reading. The staff would ask that this be approved.
Mr. Davidson, if you would read the ordinance, please.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Occupation Taxes, Article 10.3.4A1 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following amendment, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the second reading.
Do we have a motion for approval?
Move to approve second reading.
Motion by Councilmember Diamond. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wynn. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll call liaison, Mr. Green. Ken Eigelhart to the Environmental Public Works Department.
Like you said, we're all green. So that's a good way to put it. The first, or the only item is the approval of resolution to submit the necessary documents to the Georgia EPD to apply for a Section 319H fiscal year 2014 grant. And Mr. Moran can tell us some about that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This will implement some low-impact development type activities in the Groveway community, our targeted redevelopment area. And as a part of the project, it will demonstrate that specific technology and will have credits available to sell to private developers whose property is limited in their ability to manage stormwater. And then by the purchase, the money that comes in from the purchase of those credits will then go into a revolving fund, and we hope will continue to build and create further opportunities for developing green infrastructure. This would be a 50-50 match, so we are applying for a total grant of $400,000, or excuse me, a grant of $200,000, a total project cost of $400,000, and that money has been identified in the grant match contingency fund.
Would this need to come back to council for a vote to, if the grant is awarded, to come back to council for approval for our side of the match?
I think if it is awarded, it will be next year, and there will be specifics, and Mr. Davidson would probably have to comment on the need to bring it back for a vote.
It would be brought back to mayor and council.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions council may have? Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Motion by Councilmember Eigelhart. Is there a second? Is that a second, Councilmember Price? Sure. Second by Councilmember Price. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Just come forward, please.
I'm a little confused by this. Sorry, I wasn't expecting this. We're asking for $200,000 from the state, the county, somebody, and we're going to match them with $200,000 so that we don't have to have developers pay stormwater management fees, but every citizen gets on their water bill $7.95 charge for stormwater management?
That would be...
Is that what I just heard?
No, if that's what you heard, we probably did not make it clear.
That's why I'm standing here. I'm a pretty good hearer, and I didn't hear that.
The concept is to come forward with some stormwater management projects that if a developer came in and was having to do stormwater projects on site, rather than doing them on his site at his cost, has nothing to do with the impact fee, he could pay the city to do these sort of water cleanup downstream. They would have to meet the same requirements for keeping the water quality the same and the detention the same, but it's an effort in recognizing we've got small lots in the parts of town, a dense community. It's trying to say, is there a way to have shared stormwater treatment and detention facilities, and the city would be able to say there's some way to do it off-site and have the developer, rather than doing on-site, pay us for the cost of what it would cost on-site. So we don't have the specific plans, As I said, it would come forward with a specific proposal before we move forward. Council would have to approve the expenditure, but this is to try to say there's an effort to try to do this. I have always been a big proponent of shared detention facilities off-site, easier to maintain and more cost-effective.
So what we're doing is we're offering developers a discount.
No, we're offering developers, rather than doing it on their property, we're saying, if you will pay us, we'll do it for you, but it's not a discount.
Well, this city's not known for paying the best price. We usually kind of go with the higher price after having 14 consultants tell us what to do.
Well, my guess is if it costs the developer more to do it with the city, then he'll do it on-site. The developer would be given the choice of doing it on-site or doing it through the city.
Now, would this money be limited to only the Groveway development? Because we have a lot of development going on. There was a man here 2 weeks ago who talked about development going on where his house and street is flooded every day, and he was an engineer, a retired engineer, who talked about problems with the you were here, Stu, I'm sure, talking about the terrible flooding and issues that are going to be presented to his home off of Alpine Drive. If we can help developers with this, and but listen, stormwater management, I sat through all those meetings years ago, all of them. You guys weren't even on the board except Jerry. You weren't even the mayor back then. So I understand stormwater management, but I don't want to see the money specifically designated only for Grove Way when we have older neighborhoods downtown that are now threatened by more development that are flooding their yards, flooding their homes, and endangering their property. So we need to make sure that that money is available to anyone who comes in, not just Groveway development.
There has been no specification at all. We haven't identified an area in which we'll do this. We'll look at a pilot program. At the time, we'll have a discussion of where it would be, but there is no specific site in mind yet.
Well, I'd like to see before they start distributing money that it is not just targeted at one area, but that it's equally available to anyone who needs it, because that is a real problem in this town. In the older parts of the older neighborhoods that don't have HOAs, we don't have attorneys, we don't have anything, and what we get is nothing. We get the leftovers. We get nothing. We get no protection either. Just witness Alpine Drive.
This will come back to council with a specific proposal. There will be public hearing on that matter, and you'll have an opportunity to address it when it comes back, if it comes back. We haven't gotten the grant yet. Anyone else wish to comment? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll call upon liaison to the Public Safety Department, Fire and Police, Councilmember Becky Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we start, though, I'd like to make sure that we have 2 corrections made, Ms. Love, in the agreement. Where it says, on the first page, where it says, now therefore, the second sentence needs, that 607 needs to be changed to 500. And on the same page, the last line, the 607 needs to be changed to 500. Thank you. This is approval of an IGA between Fulton County and the City of Roswell for the 800 megahertz radio system access. Chief Grant.
Yes, I have a corrected version, and I emailed it to Mr. Davidson a few minutes ago, so he has that.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that we have it in our packet.
Okay,
Thank you.
Good. This is the IGA for the current radio system that we utilize every day for fire and police. As you all know, we're in the process of creating a new radio system, and this does not affect the new radio system. The cost for 500 radios will be $86,290 from January 1, 2014 until December 31st, 2014. And this is the IGA between Fulton County and the City of Roswell. There is a clause in there that allows for reimbursement to the city should the new radio system be up and running before December 31st, 2014. So we'll be able to get part of this money back should we have that new radio system up and running before then.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember Price.
What did we pay this year?
It would have, I'm not sure exactly. It would have been more than that because we had more than 500 radios on the system.
So was it comparable or a higher rate or a lower
Well,
rate? Does
the
anybody-
number that I'm aware of before the 500 was 607. So it would have been just over $100,000 is what we paid for this current.
Well, that's this year though, but what about last year? The same as, it was the same last year?
This is last year, and they modified it this year.
Excuse me, Chief Grant, it's
Okay,
it's
thank
on
you.
this page, it's $104,756.06 for 670 radios.
Other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Wynn to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. At this time, we have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel, real estate, and litigation by our city attorney. Do we have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Welcome. Thank you for coming.